Hi everyone, Paul here from FamilyWheels.ca with another car review for your growing family. And while I don't want to get ahead of myself too much here, I really feel like we're in for a bit of a resurgence in the good old-fashioned station wagon. They never really went anywhere in the European market, but on this side of the pond, we've kind of strayed away from them over the last couple of decades in favor for crossovers and SUVs. They've really become the vehicle of choice for so many families. But now we've got some interesting new options available to us, and they give you a lot of the same utility that you see in an SUV with a bit more of a driver-focused vehicle. Think of the BMW 3 Series that we were in last year. Of course, there's the new Audi Allroad we were in last year as well. Absolutely fantastic. And our daily driver is a Volvo station wagon that we absolutely love. Now we've got a new addition to this segment, a new player on the field, which actually was on the field up until 2005. It's the Mercedes C-Class. Mercedes did away with this car back in 2005, and they're bringing it back completely new, completely redesigned for 2018. Classic, beautiful lines and some really interesting new tech on board. So let's hop on board this thing and see if it can compete with those other really fantastic options this week here on Family Wheels. So yes, the C-Series wagon back in Canada for 2018. But interestingly, if you're interested in this car and you're stateside, well, you're kind of out of luck, and that's because it's not available in the lower 48. Mercedes says that Canadians and US buyers are very different, and that Canadians actually have more interest in hatchbacks and wagons than we see south of the border. So for the meantime, it's only going to be available to us here in the Great White North. Now, there really only is one trim available to you in this car, and it starts at $46,000 Canadian, which for a mid-size luxury wagon is actually quite respectable. Standard equipment includes a 4-cylinder turbocharged engine, all-wheel drive, leather, a standard suite of safety features like active brake assist and blind spot monitoring, adaptive suspension, 5 different driving modes that you can scroll through depending on your mood. But there are also a lot of things that you need to add on to that as well. And quite honestly, I feel a little bit nickel and dimed over some of this stuff. Like, for instance, you need to get the $5,000 premium package to get things like a power lift tailgate, keyless entry, or a panorama sunroof. Then it's another $2,300 to get the Premium Plus package, to get integrated garage door openers, a radar park assist system, even the built-in second row sunshades, which can be really useful for young families. A heated steering wheel is an extra $250, so is that open pore wood inlay, which looks really good in here. Even satellite radio is a $475 option. Now, it's not 2005 anymore here, Mercedes. Some of these features really do feel like they should come as standard in a luxury vehicle that starts just shy of $50,000 at its base price. But no matter how many packages you throw into this thing, you're going to get the same 2-liter turbocharged engine that puts out 241 horsepower. And you know, on paper, it sounds kind of minuscule, but despite that small size, it has some pretty impressive tricks up its sleeve. The Drive Select function down here changes the character of this car quite a bit. Economy mode makes it a fuel sipper for sure, but it also makes it, honestly, a bit of a snoozer. It really puts this car to bed. Comfort mode is great for cruising, and then this little 4-cylinder really snaps to life when you put it into Sport and Sport Plus mode. Couple this engine up with the 9-speed automatic transmission that we have on board, and it is buttery smooth. Most of the time this week I haven't even noticed when shifts have been going on, but paddle shifters do come standard as well. So for those days when you want to be driving a wagon, but you also want to let your inner Lewis Hamilton F1 driver out of the cage a bit, you can have some fun too. And then when it all goes wrong, because you're not Lewis Hamilton, the standard 4MATIC all-wheel drive has done a good job of getting me back in form this week on these snowy, icy roads that we've got around Calgary right now. Now, speaking of driving around in the snow, I've got a friend who actually owns the larger E-Class wagon with the AMG Tune package on board as well. A beautiful car, super powerful, and quite a bit bigger than this as well. But his big beef with that car is that it's so low to the ground that when he does get onto snowy side roads, he bottoms out, and it's a bit of a situation. Here in the C-Class, it's got a nice middle ground when it comes to hitting those side roads and getting into deeper snow. One thing I do find though with this car is that the ride is a little harsher than I might have expected, and I think that's largely because of these run flat tires that we have on board. I don't know what the fascination is with Mercedes and BMW with these run flats, because they're generally a little bit noisier, they make the ride a little bit harsher. I'd rather have a spare in the back and get a little bit of a plusher ride out of this vehicle, but that is something that we've got on board as standard on all versions of the C-Class wagon. Now, if you want to make the ride even a little bit stiffer, you can also get the $1,700 AMG package. Now, it doesn't change the engine at all, but you get stiffer suspension and a little bit more sort of AMG inspired styling on the outside if you want that more sport wagon look out of this car. But you know, I gotta say though, the payoff for what is a slightly harsher ride than I expected is a car that handles exceptionally well. In fact, Devin says that this is one of her favorite vehicles that we've ever tested on the channel, and she's had a chance to drive a lot of cars at this point. Fuel economy, meanwhile, for a smaller four-cylinder that I have been trying to drive a little bit carefully to see if I could improve the numbers a bit, is still not that great. But if we're talking about luxury cars, you have to have a good interior to back it up, and the C-Class delivers, walking the line beautifully between timeless yet modern style, and fit and finish is just top-notch. Nary a cheap surface to run your hand over. I haven't been able to find a single one all week. Now, if you prefer a bit more of a cutting-edge, minimalist cabin, you're not going to find it here. That's more in the Audi Allroad or the BMW 3 Series, but Mercedes is known for a bit more of a classic look, and they execute it beautifully here. Now, I was surprised to see that ventilated seats, not an option at all, even in the premium packages on this car, but otherwise the seats are good, firm but supportive, and when you combine that with a very quiet cabin at 60 decibels at 100 kilometers an hour, it really is a highway mile munching machine. I really could go road tripping in this car for days. It's just a beautiful vehicle to drive around in, both inside and out. One thing that's not quite so laudable though is the infotainment system, which right away you'll notice lacks Android Auto and Apple CarPlay, and that's despite the fact that many Mercedes vehicles in the company's lineup now offer it as an option. Now, Mercedes, I spoke with a local dealership here in town, and they say that that's going to be changing for 2019, but for now, both the wagon and the sedan don't have that available to you. I'm also not crazy about all the menus that you have to search through, even to do simple functions like changing the radio source from FM to AM. And it's all done by this not particularly intuitive, kind of bulky click wheel command controller that takes up a big portion of the center console. In fact, one day Devin took this car to work. She tried hard to figure this system out and she just couldn't do it. So she wound up listening to kids' music all the way to work long after she dropped off Roger at preschool. Now, speaking of carting kids off to school, the second row is a bit tighter than I'd hoped it would be here in the C300. With me driving at 6'2", there's really not much room at all behind the driver's seat, even for younger kids. Meanwhile, though, my wife at 5'7", when she's in the driver's seat, I've actually got enough room in the second row for a full-size adult to sit back there with a modest amount of comfort. One thing that surprised me was our rear-facing car seat test. With only 27 inches from the back of the front seat cushion up to the glove box, it means that they're going to be a real squeeze when you've got younger kids on board this car, even when you compare that to the BMW wagon, which is also a smaller wagon in the 3 Series, or the Audi Allroad, which is a bit bigger. Both of those vehicles did better with our rear-facing car seat test. You're also going to find trunk space just a little bit tighter than I was expecting. We have 490 liters of capacity behind that second row. Now that falls behind the Audi Allroad, which has 680 liters available to you, and it certainly falls far behind the much less refined but much larger Subaru Outback that actually has over twice as much trunk capacity. But if we compare it to another car that's kind of within the same category, the Volvo V60, this actually just edges it out. That car has 490 130 liters. It's not a big trunk here in the C-Series wagon, but it is big enough to fit our standardized trunk test. That's a stroller, a diaper bag, a couple bags of groceries, a backpack, and a soccer ball. Our family dog can also fit back there very happily. She's 80 pounds, so a big dog. But you are going to find that if you're going on a longer family road trip and you do have a lot of stuff to haul along, that you're going to run out of space fairly quickly. If you're used to driving around in an SUV, even the GLC, which is kind of the SUV equivalent of this car in the Mercedes lineup, you might just find that it gets a little bit tight in this car, a little bit faster than you're used to. If you want to flip down the second row seats and give yourself a little bit more room, there's a really easy to push button right at the trunk area. You push it, the back seats flip down, and all of a sudden you've got a nice flat load floor. Another great thing about this car is that we've got a 40-20-40 split. So if you do have a pair of skis that you want to drive out into the mountains with, you can throw that down the middle and still have seating for 4. So some nice little touches as well in this vehicle for making that trunk area a little bit more usable. Well, while the C-Class wagon may strike a rather impressive large pose from the outside, I was surprised to see how tight it is in the interior when it comes to trunk capacity and second row legroom. If you're looking for something though that is perhaps a secondary vehicle, or you don't need quite so much space and you just want that extra bit of utility while still having an excellent cruising vehicle, the C-Series certainly worth a look, and it's just something a little bit different than all of those SUVs and crossovers that seem to be clogging up our streets these days. And with such classic lines, I think it's the kind of car that's going to continue to look good for years to come. Your turn now though. Let us know what you think of the new C-Series wagon. Would you take this over the sedan? Leave a comment below, subscribe while you're at it, and then check out familywheels.ca for all of our reviews. Now, speaking of sedans, the next time I see you, I'm going to be in a car that a lot of you have been asking about. It's the new 2018 Toyota Camry. Looks a little bit more radical for this 2018 model year and has some people saying that perhaps it's gotten a little bit too bold, but we're going to spend a week in that coming up, so make sure to check that out in about 7 days from now. And until then, have a great week.